On February 10, 2017, the guided missile destroyer USS Porter was steaming southwest across the Black Sea. With 10 days of NATO drills behind them, the crew was already looking toward home. Without warning, the radar paints a contact. It is low, it is fast, and it is entirely silent. It isn't squawking a transponder code to identify itself, and when the crew hails it on the emergency frequency that every pilot is supposed to monitor, all they get back is the hiss of an open channel. Down in the darkened Combat Information Center, the watch team stares at a hard, bright blip on the scope. The target holds its bearing, headed straight for the Porter, and the readout in the corner of every display shows the distance between the two shrinking by the second. A fast-moving, silent blip creates an immediate information vacuum. The sailors have seconds to answer a single question. Is a hostile military threat bearing down on their ship? Or is a civilian crew dealing with a catastrophic cockpit emergency, completely unaware they are drifting toward a heavily armed warship? To guess wrong in this room carries an unbearable cost. In 1988, a U.S. cruiser in the Persian Gulf misread a climbing civilian airliner as a diving fighter jet and fired. That ghost stands behind every officer in this CIC. The absolute worst thing a warship can do in an information vacuum is to be certain too fast. This visualization models the gauntlet of filters the ship's combat system uses to prevent another tragedy. The computer grinds the incoming contact against the flight profile mathematics of every scheduled airliner that belongs in this airspace. The speed and altitude do not match any known commercial route. The system then pings the contact with an identification friend or foe interrogator. It gets 0 valid replies. Finally, the radar cross-section comes back. It is far too small for a passenger jet. The filters have done their job. This is not a lost civilian. The ship's electro-optical sights finally swing onto the bearing, revealing an Ilyushin Il-38. It is a 68-ton, 4-engine Russian sub-hunter equipped with a magnetic anomaly detector on its tail. Its radio isn't broken. It flew in dark on purpose to force the Americans to hold their fire and burn precious time working the problem. The aircraft lumbers down the Porter's hull, close enough for the crew to count the windows, before banking back toward the Crimean coast. A 60-year-old Cold War relic flying donuts around a guided missile destroyer does not pose a physical threat, but scouts never show up alone. They come to find the ship, fix its position, and report it to something with teeth. The scout's track is barely cold when a new contact blooms on the radar. It drops right down to the deck and pours straight in. It's an Su-24 Fencer, a supersonic strike jet built to bypass radar and drop up to 8 tons of bombs on ships and shore targets. On the Porter's forward deck, a squat white drum snaps around. It is the close-in weapon system, an autonomous Gatling gun capable of spitting 4,500 rounds a minute. It grabs the jet the instant it commits to the pass, tracking it flawlessly without a single human hand anywhere near the controls. Look at the schematic of the ship's vertical launch system. Beneath those hatches sit 90 individual cells, loaded with SM-2 Standard missiles, 15-foot weapons that steer at Mach 3. The computer has solved the intercept point. One word from the captain, and that jet is a fireball before the pilot even hears the launch. But the captain gives no order. The Porter is operating in weapons posture white. Picture a homeowner with a garden hose aimed right at a trespasser. The water is on, the pressure is maxed out, and his thumb rests heavily on the nozzle. The mechanical readiness to fire is absolute, but the command is to hold. Under strict self-defense rules of engagement, a warship requires a definitive hostile act to fire first. A closing strike jet at combat speed pushes right against the edge of that line. Squeeze the trigger early and the Navy becomes the aggressor. Hold a second too late and the ship pays the price in steel and lives. The Russian pilot lights his afterburners, sweeps his wings back, and howls down the side of the ship. He sees a gray hole holding its course, completely silent. To him, this simulated attack run is a victory. He reads the Porter's inaction as fear, assuming he has successfully rattled the Americans into paralysis. He is entirely wrong. While the pilot sets up for another pass, the USS Porter's SLQ-32 electronic warfare system is quietly drinking in every piece of data radiating off his aircraft. The ship is capturing the unencrypted point-blank radar and emission fingerprint of a frontline Russian strike jet. In modern warfare, electronic signatures are tightly guarded secrets, Acquiring this data normally requires massive risk, but the fencer is serving it up on a silver platter. The man flying the jet thought he was doing the intimidating. Instead, by refusing to lock weapons, the Porter turned an act of aggression into a highly successful intelligence haul. The pilot paid for his own photo op with his aircraft's most valuable secrets. Then the stakes jump again. The radar paints two jets carving in together. They slide into a wing-to-wing formation, and the optical sights confirm what the crew feared: ordnance hanging under the wings. Both are armed. The two jets roll in, dropping below 300 feet and accelerating past 500 knots, aiming to cross intimately close ahead of the bow. This overhead vector shows why the weapons on their wings are no longer the primary threat. At 500 knots, an aircraft drags a massive cone of wake turbulence behind it. A 30-ton airframe moving this much air becomes a kinetic weapon all on its own. The rules of engagement drop away entirely, replaced by raw physics. A gust of wind, a split second of bad airmanship, or one misjudged foot of altitude turns a buzz job into a fatal collision in the space of a wingspan. The captain's options collapse to exactly two. He can aggressively maneuver his 500-foot ship, risking throwing the bow directly into the path where the jets are already heading. Or he can hold steady and trust two men in a hostile cockpit not to kill everyone by accident. With two armed jets filling the bridge windows and the automated defenses screaming for a launch clearance, the captain issues the hardest order a commanding officer can give. He maintains heading. He does absolutely nothing. At the final instant, with the superstructure eating their windscreens, the two pilots haul back on the sticks. They rip past the Porter's masts, the wash rocking the ship, their afterburners screaming as they claw their way back up into the clouds. The capacity to obliterate a target is just engineering. Modern naval power relies entirely on ironclad discipline. To load the weapon, acquire the target, solve the math, and hold fire until the final possible fraction of a second.